Well, who are the biggest winners and losers now that reports come out recommending that the upcoming municipal elections be postponed due to the pandemic? Well, former Deputy Chief Justice Dikgang Moseneke says should the polls go ahead in October as planned, it wouldn't be free and fair. So he suggested that the Independent Electoral Commission should think about holding elections sometime before March. Moseneke's recent inquiry found that the lockdown regulations would make campaigning difficult for political parties. Wayne Sussman is an election analyst and he's been mulling over the latest recommendations. Wayne, thanks so much for joining us. My question is the IEC bound by former Deputy Chief Justice Moseneke's recommendations?
I think that they are going to strongly consider the recommendations. My understanding is that they will accept the findings and that they'll now be going to the Constitutional Court for there to be a short postponement of the local government elections. Remember, we have that critical time period that a council cannot sit for more than 5 years and 3 months. And we know that the deadline for this term is 1 November 2021. But what Judge Moseneke is saying is that because of the COVID-19 pandemic, because of key steps which need to happen between now and the local government elections, it's not possible to have a free and fair election in light of the current pandemic. I'll give you a very quick example. Registration of older people in old age homes. We know that, let's take registration weekends. Registration weekends are generally low-key affairs. Not so many people are going to go. So I think that is something which can definitely happen during level 4. The issue comes to old age homes. The IEC would, because people in old age homes might not necessarily be able to get to the polls to register or re-register. Therefore, the IEC needs to access old age homes. And we know that some old age homes might not allow external people in right now to protect their residents. So there are definitely challenges at play. And I think that the Constitutional Court will listen strongly to those and probably strongly consider to move the elections to February 2022.
Wayne, which parties would be the winners here and which would be the losers?
Annika, it's not clear who the real winners would be. So you could say that the ANC had a very difficult week last week in KwaZulu-Natal, and that the DA had a better week. But who knows what would happen between October and February 2022. The EFF, I think, had a difficult week last week. But the DA and the ANC, who, well, particularly the ANC, who are in control of the overwhelming amount of councils in this country, I don't know if there's going to be a major shift in service delivery between October and February. So it's not clear to me who the winners are. It's more clearer who the losers are. And the losers in this case are new political parties who didn't contest either the 2019 elections or the 2016 elections, or parties which didn't do so well last time round and are bound to do better this time. And parties who come to mind in the latter category are parties like the Freedom Front Plus, parties like Al Jamaah, parties like Gayton McKenzie's The Patriotic Alliance, parties like Patricia de Lille's Good. I think those parties are going to have more public representatives after the next local government elections. Then there are new kids on the block, like Herman Bashaba's Action SA. There's a party in KwaZulu-Natal called the Abantu Bote Congress, which is doing relatively well in by-elections, and Musi Maimani's One South Africa movement. Remember, it's very, very important for a political party not just to have members of parliament or members of provincial legislature, but to have councillors as well, to have people on the ground to articulate the party's vision, to represent that party in your respective communities, in the respective communities. And right now, if you take a party like Good, which has 2 members of parliament, 1 member of the provincial legislature, and only 1 councillor because of a by-election they won, it's very, very hard for Good to spread that message across the Western Cape and the rest of South Africa. So this delay just means that there's a delay in them having more public representatives on the ground.
Yeah, those smaller parties, you make such a good point there. What are the voting trends in the recent by-elections telling you about how parties may fare in the upcoming municipal polls whenever they do take place?
Yeah, and there again, what the Judge Moseneke didn't deal with yesterday is when by-elections will resume. We know that by-elections were cancelled in June at the 11th hour as we moved into the level 4 lockdown. So by-elections for me are an important trend. So what we've seen recently is that the ANC support in rural areas across South Africa is incredibly resolute, bar for KwaZulu-Natal. So in places like the Eastern Cape, places like Limpopo, the ANC have been doing incredibly well. The DA have been battling to retain some of the core voters in that impressive coalition the party assembled between 2015 and 2018. We know that in predominantly coloured areas like Eldorado Park, they lost by-elections to the Patriotic Alliance. We know that they've struggled slightly, somewhat in rural parts of the Western Cape. We know that the IFP started rebounding. But now with this gap, because of COVID, i.e. no more by-elections are taking place, and an extension of the local government election, it gives those parties more time to harness their message and get back on track.
Wayne Sussman, thank you so much. An election analyst, thank you for your time today.